Welcome to Show 7 of HipMojo. I'm your host, Ashkan Karbas-Fushan.
And I'm CT Moore. And this week we're going to be talking about mergers and acquisitions, specifically in the tech industry. And why is that?
Well, because the soap opera at AOL and TechCrunch continues. But instead of talking about that yet again, we figured we'd expand and talk broadly about what makes M&A deals work and what makes M&A deals fail. So about 5 years ago, you wrote an article about this, Cal Surprise, and you picked what you thought at the time were 10 of the best merger and acquisitions in the tech space. Internet and online media specifically, more so than tech, but yeah.
Right, and well, it's been 5 years. That's an eternity in the tech industry, but let's go back and take a look at it and see how it's still holding up first.
Let's start with number 10.
All right, Aquantive acquires Razorfish.
Yeah, so Razorfish was a poster child in the dot-com world, one of the first digital agencies. It obviously hit turbulence after the dot-com and NASDAQ crashed. The reason why I put this deal was because Aquantive sold just a few years after it bought Razorfish for $160 million. It sold itself for $6 billion to Microsoft. Now, Microsoft admittedly was more interested in the Atlas ad-serving software suite, but still, this was the deal that helped Aquantive grow, get a lot of interest. $6 billion is a lot of money. Would this deal still be in there in the top 10 list? Maybe. I just see a lot of deals have happened in the past 5 years that would eclipse this one.
All right, and speaking of Microsoft, that brings us to number 9, when Microsoft acquired Hotmail.
That's correct. So in '97, Yahoo made its own acquisition of an email company, and the next year in '98, Hotmail was acquired for $400 million by Microsoft. You could argue that $400 million is a hell of a lot of money, and it is. But I mean, $400 million was nothing to Microsoft, and it basically gave Microsoft the first viral app. Every time you sent out an email, at the bottom it said, sign up to Hotmail. So that's sort of where the whole idea of things going viral came about. Would this still be on the list? I mean, $400 million is a lot, and potentially Hotmail accounts are not that active anymore.
No, I think we all have them, but no one signs into them.
That's true, but it still gave them this massive position in email. 350 million accounts is still more than the amount of AOL, Yahoo, and Gmail accounts out there. So I would still put it, but maybe at number 10.
All right. Number 8 was when Ask Jeeves acquired Interactive Search Holdings.
Yeah, so I mean, at the time, this was 2004, Google was not even public yet, right? So if investors wanted to play the search market, Ask Jeeves and InfoSpace were one of the only few options. What Ask Jeeves did is they used about $340 million to buy one of the top 30 properties out there and gave itself critical mass. And then a few years later, after Google came around and just was dominating and eating market share in search, it's this deal that helped Ask Jeeves sell itself to Interactive Corp and Barry Diller for $1.8 billion. Would I put this still on the list? Probably not, but at the same time, you pay $340 million to buy something, you financial engineer yourself to sell yourself for $1.8 billion, that's not bad at all. But this probably wouldn't make this list if we did the list today because there's been so many other bigger, more important deals.
And speaking of bigger ones, this brings us to number 7. I think this is still relevant. It's when eBay bought PayPal.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think had eBay not paid a whopping $1.5 billion for PayPal, this would almost be number 1. If eBay is still a premier, forget relevant, a money printing company 15 years after being found, it's because of PayPal. PayPal is dominant. They make almost as much money, if not more, as the core auction business. So this would definitely be top 10, and we had it at number 7. 5 years after, this might even be higher ranked.
And number 6, AOL bought Advertising.com for a nice pretty penny.
Yeah, shockingly, in June 2004, AOL managed to convince the money people at the company to spend $435 million on Advertising.com. What makes this really shocking is that AOL and Time Warner had merged and evaporated about $100 billion of market value. So somehow, they had the wisdom to go ahead with this deal. And this actually was done in like the nuclear winter of the online era. So it ushered back the prominence of internet startups. It ushered the golden era of ad networks. And this is what led then, I think, for Blue Lithium to exit and Aquantive to exit and Right Media, which, more of an ad exchange, et cetera. But this, I would still put this in the top 10 almost for symbolic purposes. It was like a turning point in online coming back. Next.
All right, number 5, I don't even remember this. It was way before my time. Yahoo acquiring Tomi. I don't even know what Tomi is.
You're not that young, buddy. So Tomi was one of the first companies that built search technology, and a lot of the different search companies out there actually were powered by Tomi. So Terry Semel comes on as CEO of Yahoo, and he realizes, oh my God, we're basically a directory. Our search is powered by Google, which helped make Google what it was. So basically, what this gave Yahoo was the search technology. which was half of the puzzle. The other half was the next deal, basically.
Right. Number 4, Yahoo buying Overture, which they don't even own anymore.
Yeah, so they don't own Overture. Overture, they paid a much higher price. They had paid $235 million for Tomi, but then they paid $1.6 billion for Overture, right? So Overture, initially known as GoTo.com, founded by Bill Gross. GoTo was the paid listings. Basically, you know, if you're searching for Madrid, you got listings of ads in Madrid hotels, airfare. I mean, I put these at 5 and 4. Which one really is more powerful? It's almost the yin to the yang. You can only leverage Overture if you have Tomi, and Tomi becomes a worthwhile piece of the puzzle if you can monetize it from Overture. Right. We'll see which one of these, neither both makes the list when we update it, but definitely you got to give credit to Yahoo. Late to the game, they might have paid a lot, but they brought the pieces together to play in search.
And speaking of having a solid search product and a solid search advertising platform, that brings us to number 3 with Google acquiring Sprinks.
Yeah, so a lot of people, when I did this article, not bashed me. A lot of people actually said spot on. Even Fred Wilson, legendary investor, a lot of other very smart people, executives, investors, and analysts and journalists. Where I do think I probably made a bit of a slip up is I chose the Sprinks deal, which was a unit of Prime Media. At the time, Prime Media also owned Aboutcom. Sprinks was really the distribution of those listings that you see Google has now everywhere around the web. I think in hindsight, and I'm probably giving away here the next list, the deal that Google made that was probably a lot more influential was buying Applied Semantics. Applied Semantics gave them the technology in AdSense, which is basically what allows them to scan a page and say, oh, this is a page on Madrid, so we're going to run ads on Madrid, travel, Spain, paella, or whatever.
Semantic element to their algorithm, essentially.
Exactly. Sprinks was important in that it was a distribution and reach, but it was probably Applied Semantics that was the more critical piece.
And number 2, they're not a tech giant, but it made your list. The New York Times buys About.com.
Yeah, so this one's a bit tricky. In 2005, you have to bear in mind, when they paid $400 million for About.com, they basically bought an asset that Prime Media had paid a lot more. The reason why I put it on the list is because this really, for a while, did give New York Times an opportunity to get more into digital without, becoming basically like a content farm and just publishing any random video, any random article just to boost the content that they had in the traffic. So the reason why this made it on the list was because it allowed the New York Times to preserve that great editorial, journalistic integrity, et cetera, but gave them an asset in the About.com franchise that could just pump out more articles, get more traffic. Now, obviously, About.com has been attacked by Demand Media, which sort of out-abouted About.com, if that's any normal way of speaking. So I'm not sure if this deal would still make it on the list, but I mean, it did help New York Times get like a second engine to grow online and preserve the great New York Times franchise, which takes us to number 1.
Number 1 just shows you why hindsight is so hilarious.
And why I have a thick skin to actually do this today, but anyway, go on.
And I think everyone sees this coming. It's when News Corp acquired MySpace.
Okay, so I did this in 2006. It was in November of 2006, a month after the YouTube deal. At the time, I liked the YouTube deal, but I thought it was way too premature to talk about Google buying YouTube. I mean, a month into a deal, you can't comment. So I purposely in the intro said we're excluding that, which I was very bullish on and remain bullish today. But in 2006, this was before MySpace got Facebook, basically, MySpace and News Corp had basically become a top 10 player because of this acquisition when News Corp paid $580 million for MySpace parent Intermix. Why this became the number 1 is really one reason and one reason only. And in fact, I got 900 million reasons for you. Google agreed to pay News Corp's Fox Interactive Media unit $900 million. So that immediately recouped the investment for Rupert Murdoch. Now, of course, MySpace could have been a great thing that kept on growing. The next MTV could have been the Facebook, could have been the next Google. It wasn't. So we're going to take a short break. This is as good of a segue as any to come back and discuss, 1, why MySpace failed, but also take a step back and just talk about why do M&A deals sometimes fall apart. We'll be right back.